Psychedelics have originated from different tribes in different places as part of sacred rituals and healing ceremonies. Their beliefs were that psychedelics could bring them closer to another world, a spiritual realm to communicate with a higher power or the divine. The uses varied from tribe to tribe, but a lot of these plants had healing properties and they were believed to treat physical ailments, mental illnesses, and emotional imbalances. Anyone who was seeking healing would go to the shaman to do so. The shaman himself would use psychedelics to communicate with nature and animals. Much of what a lot of people have known in the past decades is negative, and this is a result of people misusing them in an unsupervised context. Albert Hofmann was the first to discover psychedelics outside of the indigenous world, specifically LSD. As many things that were invented or discovered, this was an accident. While attempting to find a drug to stimulate the respiratory and circulatory system of women who'd just had a baby, psychedelics was born and created. By breaking down the various compounds of the plant air god, he found that LSD takes you to another world. And soon after, researchers everywhere were experimenting with LSD. Now, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert started their notorious study in Harvard, where they gave students psilocybin, but the experiment was unprofessional and things got messy. Now, the professors were concerned with how students were behaving, and after one specific incident, both men were fired and discredited. But they're not the only ones. Ken Kesey was a writer that was a part of a study conducted by the CIA using psychedelics. Unfortunately, he liked it a little bit too much. In 1964, his followers and him across the United States, where they organized parties and gave out LSD and started what would be known today as the counterculture. Then there's Maria Sabina, a Mazatec who healed herself after the death of her husband. The tragedy left her unable to move, so she turned to mushrooms to recover, and she became a healer herself. Well, years later, a banker from JP Morgan and his wife found Sabina after seeking her out and participated in her rituals. After coming back to the US from Mexico, they actually published their experiences in a famous magazine. And in just a couple of years, the town in Mexico had turned into a hippie culture, and Sabina was blamed for the misuse that people were participating in and to the lack of respect that other people had for the mushrooms. While she passed away with a bad reputation, her legacy still lives on, but now in a bit of a brighter light. With all that said, there's an important thing to note. Psychedelics should be taken in a treatment setting with clinicians and therapists. Most definitely, it shouldn't be tried on one's own. Before we keep going, hi, my name is Kim and welcome to the Green Lab Coat. If you enjoy living a healthy lifestyle backed by science, make sure to subscribe, and also don't forget to hit the like button to help the algorithm and hit the bell for complicated subjects made easy. Let's get started. When looking for inspiration, business gurus and doctors alike have turned to microdosing with magic mushrooms, LSD, and ketamine, where they take doses below the threshold for hallucinogenic effects. In Silicon Valley especially, psychedelics is a big thing in the world of big tech and entrepreneurship. While some want to treat anxiety, others want a creativity boost and focus enhancement. Then you have those that want full-on business breakthroughs. While there's limited research on improved focus by use of psychedelics, Steve Jobs is a great example. In the Netflix documentary, How to Change Your Mind, you can literally hear a recording of Steve Jobs saying that taking LSD, also known as acid, was one of the 2 or 3 most important things he'd done in his life. And he's also credited LSD with unlocking his creativity and helping him to build a successful business. While Jobs was always honest about his use of psychedelics, it doesn't appear that he was addicted, but merely used them to help him relax and to open up his mind to unique possibilities. Now, with that said, LSD may be the only psychedelic that can cause a tolerance. Meanwhile, investors have also noticed, and according to the research firm Brand Essence, the market is expected to reach $11.8 billion by 2029 as money is being poured into psychedelic development. Since creeping into the corporate world, some companies offer ketamine-assisted therapy as an employee benefit. While there are several types of psychedelic drugs, most fall into the 3 families of chemical compounds, which are tryptamines, phenethylamine, and lysergamines. The most known are LSD, psilocybin found in mushrooms, mescaline found in cacti, and DMT found in a plant called ayahuasca. Psilocybin is a common known psychedelic. In a study conducted by Johns Hopkins Medicine, 24 women with long-term history of depression received 2 doses of psilocybin 2 weeks apart. On their depression scale, their depression went from 22.8 on average down to 7.7 on average at the 12-month follow-up after treatment. Now, 75% had a stable rate of response to the treatment and 58% had remission at 12 months. Now we're going to talk about addiction. Psilocybin, LSD, and mescaline show promising studies for treating alcoholism. But ibogaine, and I hope I'm saying that right, has helped people with opioid and cocaine addictions. A study published in the Journal of Psychoactive Drugs found that a single ibogaine treatment reduces opioid withdrawal symptoms. And this is obviously the hardest part. Now, that same study showed that 5 out of 21 quit all substances after a follow-up of roughly 2 years later. Now, this goes to show that ibogaine may not sustain recovery. Now, Dimitri Mugianis had turned to ibogaine after a traditional 12-step program failed to help him recover. According to him, ibogaine helped him take an unflinching look at his life and come to terms with his guilt. He acknowledged that recovery rates for users of ibogaine is high, but he thinks that they're actually higher than reported. Now, the plant is said to embody the spirit of a harsh and loving patriarch that confronts an individual during their hallucinations. And Dimitri found himself tossing and turning, sweating and vomiting while processing 40 years of trauma and guilt. He goes on to say that while the experience was difficult, he never felt like he was going through a withdrawal, and that when he came out of it, he was clean.
Probably the most powerful and the most efficient is ibogaine, a ruthlessly introspective 24-hour trip that rewires the way your brain views addiction and has a high level of effectiveness.
Interesting.
In rehabilitating people, like just killing the desire to do opiates.
Huh. Are they doing that in America?
Mexico.
Ah.
Gotta go to Mexico. And it's not something you get addicted to. It's apparently something that you
One
have a really
time,
hard
right?
time doing it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
Now, Dimitri went on to illegally provide ibogaine to desperate addicts in hotel rooms across NYC where people couldn't afford the treatment. He eventually caught a misdemeanor for this, due to leniency of course, until psychedelic conferences began actually hiring him as a speaker. So in this day, Dimitri is a psychedelic healer himself, and although it's been hard to quantify the success rate, many people have sweared by its effectiveness. Lastly, we're going to get into PTSD and synthetic drugs that are viewed as psychedelics. MDMA and ketamine, for example, are modified but both have hallucinogenic effects. MDMA has been designed as a breakthrough therapy for PTSD by the FDA in the United States. Now, studies have shown that MDMA-assisted psychotherapy can help reduce anxiety associated with recalling traumatic experiences. It can increase insight and memory and improve mood. And in a randomized controlled trial, MDMA compared to the placebo group showed significant decreases in PTSD symptoms. And additionally, a phase 3 trial sponsored by MAPS found that a significant percentage of participants who received MDMA-assisted therapy no longer qualified for a PTSD diagnosis after the treatment. As much as there are some miraculous benefits, there are risks as well. People with heart or brain-related conditions are excluded from clinical trials for safety reasons. Now, when people have frightening trips, they can injure themselves if unsupervised. Heavy use of psychedelics can bring about urinary tract issues and affect coordination. The more short-term risks include high blood pressure, nausea, and headaches. Now, in the grander scheme of things, using psychedelics at the moment is at odds with the law. While many alcoholics exist, alcohol is still legal, yet the thing that helps treat it is not. Psychedelics are transdiagnostic, meaning that they can be used to treat multiple conditions. Specifically, treatment-resistant depression, addiction, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, and taking away the fear of people dying from cancer. By sharing this information with others, we can help change the negative stigma surrounding psychedelics. You can also contact your local representatives and support organizations working towards that. And like we always say, in the end, the choice is yours.